going on, folks? What is up? It is Sunday, April 8th, 2018. How we doing there, Big Chonis?
Hey, good evening, Cheds. How are you tonight, man?
It's good, man. I heard you breathing, man. I heard you breathe a little over my shoulder like you were waiting for a pool table, and I was ahead of you or something.
It's good to be here, man. It's good to be here.
Welcome everybody. It's like I told you the date, so we can move on from that. Find me on Twitter at Big Cheds. That's not my page. I'll get to that in just a moment. You can find my friend here on Twitter at Big Chonis, where he does a great job on crypto. And of course, you can go to the website chedstrading.blogspot.com. We have the complete beginner's guide to cryptocurrency trading. Just go ahead and take a look at the table of contents. You guys know right there will help you get started. And of course, subscribe to the videos. And here's my Twitter page at Big Cheds. So, Big Chonis, how we doing, brother? What are we seeing out there? Tell me where we're at.
Well, you want to start with Bitcoin right now?
Yeah, I mean, I know you took a nap, and it looks like the bear is out of hibernation, and Bitcoin's making a little move here.
Yeah, I'm watching the price action all day today and, really the past couple days. And it's, we have to acknowledge that it's been setting up pretty nicely. Mm-hmm. We've been seeing this ever so slow with a very low volume environment, methodical move up. And it seems like every time it feels like, oh, it's about to break down, oh, it's about to roll over, it just holds a higher low and continues to put in some, continued higher highs, or at least in this short-term move here. And, I've been watching the order book pretty much most of the day because I've watched this so much. I really have a sense that kind of like, is this really a push here, or is this kind of like a setup? And the past couple of days I was kind of looking at it as a setup, especially when we had a lot of that sideways action a day ago, like dead sideways action, and then there was a little dip and it basically got bought back up and maintained that price, and that was the signal for the bulls that right there at around
what, the 26 MA26. It's had a couple dips to it here over the last day or so, right, Big Chonis?
Yep. Well, if you look what happened about 6 p.m. on the hourly chart right there, you see where it started to fall apart, and then the bull stepped back in, it got right back up, and that's basically what gave the signal to have this impulse wave, which we've been basically watching over the past day or so. And it's still moving up. As I said, it keeps holding that line there. I noticed something on the 6-hour, Cheds, if you want to head to the 6-hour there on GDAX.
You got it.
Basically, GDAX offers the EMA 12 and 26, and it's a really good guide to have a sense kind of where you are there. And what I noticed on the 26 is that both of those are now acting as support on the price action there.
It's a little early. That's too early. That's too early to call that EMA 12 support, though, Big Chonis. I mean, it's just...
Well, the reason I bring it up specifically is because you look back about what happened last time it was support. They both acted as support, and we were able to get on top of both of them before it rolled over and created a nice little dip there. So are we seeing a similar setup here where they kind of brings them both up there only to set up something?
Yeah, but more interestingly, are we crossing? Because the last time we crossed, Big Chonis, and this is Big Cheds, it was a bearish cross back on March 27th, halfway through the day. So we had that bearish cross, and you can see the price was punished, a little bit, went from 79 down to whatever that low was recently. So we could be, if you're a moving average cross trader, you might be getting a signal here with a moving average cross, 6-hour, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have to acknowledge the volume is very low, but I was thinking about that. I'm like, what does that really tell us? Because we've never been, at least this year, at least in the past several months, anywhere close to this low volume on a consistent basis. And what we're seeing here, sure, there's not a lot of buying, but there's also not a lot of selling. And when we basically double tested that 6,400 range last week and held, that was kind of a double bottom temporarily right there, exactly right there. And that was kind of the signal that, hey, we're not ready to give up our Bitcoin yet at 6,400 or less. And that held twice. And because of that, that's what this kind of the move you're seeing right now. That's interesting. I think that basically says, because if you think about how many people were able to get in, and we talked about this on our previous show, at the previous bounce area, which was around 6,000, there's probably a lot of people that maybe even still holding from that area there that went long then and continued to do so. So because there's so much new money in between, 6 and 7,000, this really isn't an area here that people were easily shaken from their coin. And basically, if we were to retest that 6,400 area again, the third time, and the third time's a charm, I don't think it would hold again. And that break would basically create that kind of next downward big move. But for now, we're clearly in a small uptrend. The bulls seem to be in control right now, and I'm seeing it in the order book. I'm seeing nice buying lots. I'm seeing some, I don't want to comment on the volume yet because even though we're in this low environment, semi-sized moves can actually move the price action quite a bit if no one's selling right now. So there aren't a lot of sellers, and there's a little more buying pressure, and I think that's what you're kind of seeing in this trickle up we've seen. Question is how far it could go, and I have a few ideas about that as well.
And we're getting some nice loading here. I'm just looking at the tape. We had that 15 lot. We're getting a 17 lot here in the tape, Bitcoin. So there's some buy pressure here. We're getting some nice buying. So yeah, you're a little more. It's a little more bullish than I expected to hear you be, because we've just kind of been talking about this no trade zone, Big Chonis. We've been talking about low volume, sideways, upward drift. We've got a 4-hour, a little bit overbought here. So it's no trade zone. Are we breaking out of a no trade zone? Is it now a trade zone?
No, I am still sticking personally for me for a no trade zone. There's still several factors that basically make me feel that way. Yep. The biggest of which is that from a resistance standpoint, we've basically seen, I'd say, the 73 to 74.50 range act as resistance a couple times.
Yep.
Most recently on our previous bounce there. That's a super strong area now of resistance. So my thought based on what I'm seeing right now, right around 7,400. Which is basically where we topped off, last week there. Yep. Looks like we're basically headed to maybe try and retest that if we can. Yep. And that double test of that is going to determine if we can push higher. If we're able to break it, I think there's definitely a chance that, at least 8,000 potentially might be in the cards after that. If we can break, 7,450, 7,500 with a little conviction there, 8,000 is definitely the next range there. But however, though, that could form a bear flag. Like if we actually make, what's ironic is if we break that high, we could actually put it in the higher high that we would need to form a bear flag on the 4-hour, Big Chonis. Yeah.
Right? So that would be ironic. So it'd be good. It's like a good first step, but do you want it? Because you'd be breaking that high, and then all of a sudden you've got the stock RSI, and you'd have an RSI, and sorry to interrupt you, but you'd have the RSI, at that point almost probably 65.
Well, that's what's such a conundrum about this right now, where you're showing the 4-hour, once again, we've been up here before, we're topped off again, as we talked about in our previous segments, how, the 4-hour is never topped off more than 3 days in a row, it seems, on the stock RSI, and we're kind of getting into that zone tomorrow. We also haven't really corrected much since this nice little impulse wave we've basically been seeing. But, I'm just, you have to acknowledge the order book right now is bullish. It's short-term bullish. There's buyers there. The price action is showing it. The volume has increased a lot. It's not saying much considering where we've been over the past, 48 hours of anemic, sub 4 billion, volume. So yes, are we setting up for potentially a much larger fall? That is still what I think will happen.
That's the thesis we're sticking with, right?
Right, but we, for the moment, have basically exhausted the selling in the mid 6,500 range, and because of that, that's what's allowed this kind of move here. There's a lot of resistance ahead of us, significant in certain area. There's been a falling wedge patterns I've been looking at online. It depends how you draw it. If it's a log scale versus linear, it kind of shows a different angle. Some show we broke it, some show we haven't. Kind of a similar trap in terms of where we were up about 11.7 or 11.4, where if you were in log or something, it didn't show it broke, but if you were linear, it showed we were did, and it's a similar situation that's happening now.
Yep, that's a great point. I think you have to, and then that's a great question because, okay, if anything, that should tell you that you need to be patient because, you break the line on a Bitfinex, but you haven't broken it on a Bitstamp, and you haven't broken it on Coinbase or whatever. So, I think that's why you need multiple levels of confirmation, and you're making a great point, Big Chonis. And this is Big Cheds, guys. You can find me on Twitter at Big Cheds. He's at Big Chonis. Check out the blog, chedstradingblogspot.com. Are you seeing bearish divergence on the 4-hour for Bitcoin? Big
Well,
Chonis?
yeah, the biggest bearish divergence I still keep seeing is the OBV is not rising as fast, it seems, with
As
the price
fast?
action.
Wait. Rising as fast or rising, right? Because we have a downtrending OBV. Even if I draw it from whatever you say the bottom is here.
Well, okay, all right, you're right. So now actually, it's right. It's not falling as fast
It's just
as it had been.
it's actually falling. You have a falling OBV with a rising price.
Right, with a little tick up very recently, exactly. Almost a break of it. I mean, are we breaking through that though?
Well, you could. That's a question. But
You're
as of
right.
right
That
now,
is an example of bearish divergence, and that's kind of why I still feel skeptical on this move in terms of a real push.
So we could get rejected here at the 75 level. We could even break it, and it still wouldn't be convincing because there's a lot of traffic up ahead, so to speak. Let's go Ethereum. Let's break the mold. We usually jump to Litecoin. Let's go Ethereum. I mean, that's had a nice little move, man. I'm gonna go 1 hour, Big Chonis. Let's see here. Oh man, well we're surging above the upper Bollinger on the 1 hour, Big Chonis. First thing that sticks out to me is we have some important resistance coming up. The prior peak here at 417.79.
Yep.
What do you see?
I see that as well. I put a tweet out earlier today noting that Ether was more bullish or leading the pack in terms of its ratio to Bitcoin today. And I noticed that.
I'll find that. Go ahead.
And that was kind of interesting to me because it showed that Ether had a clear short-term, more bullish sentiment than Litecoin did at that moment. Ether's had a lot of bottoming in the past, let's see here, past week or so. It's really held on several occasions. That 360 zone bounced off it kind of almost 3 times and held. And there's another example there. Basically, it had the double tap, held, and now it's rising there. But as you mentioned, the resistance there would be a triple resistance again at 417. That's a very interesting area to watch there, because if we were able to break that, and again, a lot of this really is going to happen to do what Bitcoin actually ends up doing there. But you could potentially be testing that 425, well, really 450 area, only because as I said before, Ether likes to move in 25s and 50s. So
look at this double top.
Would be where it's going.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Look at that. It's a significant area. I zoomed out, Big Chonis, and we hit that same area at 418 back on the end of March. 331.
Yes.
So that's no joke. I think that's going to be significant to see if it can break that. We do kind of have a real nice upward channel here, middle Bollinger support here in the 1 hour. It's making a nice move. But I'm noting that the hourly RSI is at about 75. So it's due to cool off right now. You can see this kind of tight channel. Surge, upper Bollinger, pull back to middle, upper to middle. So we're going to probably pull back to the middle Bollinger here shortly.
Yeah. I mean, there's 2 kind of schools of thought right now. You're like, oh, am I able to now sell a little into strength because I'm seeing the strength there? Have we leveled off in a moment where we're feeling okay? Maybe for a while here we can kind of form a new base, try to bring in some new buyers, get comfortable with this level again. It's almost like we've been so attuned to this continuing deflation in price that we're almost surprised that it's actually holding up over several days. It's been a while since we've kind of felt this kind of, oh, it's not falling off a cliff, kind of feeling. So, as long as it keeps doing this, that's what you kind of feel. Ether, I still feel out of the big 3 has the farthest still yet to drop. The depth chart still shows bearishness, but all 3 are showing a very short-term bullish sentiment, as there are some buyers now in the market. And so far, higher lows continue to be set in, and we'll see. There hasn't really been a retracement yet, so we're going to see probably a retracement to kind of test if this is really a true bullish move. And basically, wherever that happens, if we're able to break from that, I think that will bring the next round of buying in potentially.
It's notable, Big Chonis, and this is Big Cheds. If you look at the daily chart on Ethereum, if you want to pull that up for me.
Sure.
So I've recently added RSI to my setup, And it sounds like, oh, good job, you discovered the wheel, right? Everybody uses RSI. I always use stock RSI because I feel like it gives me a little more, it's just a little bit more fine-tuned, and you get that crossing signal. But I've added back RSI because it kind of tells me how to interpret the extreme channels of my stochastic RSI, Big Jonas. So here's a great example of that. So we did just form a new daily candle 120 minutes or 2 hours ago, and it shows we're overbought. Now it says we're overbought, but that basically means we can run all day, and then we're overbought. But note the RSI is only like 35 in the daily, so we're actually really not overbought. Yeah, so this just shows you the value of adding this RSI to kind of show you how to interpret the stochastics RSI. That way you still get that middle channel momentum with the stochastics, get that crossing buy signal. So that's kind of interesting.
I mean, to kind of piggyback on that, I totally agree that the daily and the 4 hour are kind of setting up to be in an overbought, area. But you're right, it could be up there for another day or so.
Yep. Although 4 hour is 70, Big Jonas. Right.
So is it setting up basically for that? Basically a big pullback or some kind of pullback. That's why this run we're seeing right now, it might have another day or so, or at least into tomorrow. I think tomorrow's going to be a very interesting day in terms of sentiment on like traders. Sentiment has a lot to do with how certain events impact, the stocks, or at least the asset class you actually trade. There's a lot happening in the world. This weekend, kind of setting up into next week, we kind of saw how the stock markets ended on Friday. If a lot of that selling continues into next week, it'll be interesting to see how, it's going to affect the crypto market. We talked a lot about, is there a divergence between, as the market falls, crypto can rise because people might see it as a little more safer situation. I don't see it that way yet. I almost see it as the deflating overall stock market is not a good thing for crypto in the short term, at least, because you're just taking money, profits that were there kind of out of the system. People need cash to pay their bills. People need cash to pay their taxes in a week from now.
Well, that's a great point, Big Chonis, and let's get Litecoin done too here for the folks. But we're April 8th, about to be April 9th. We got just under 2 weeks here for taxes. There's, whether it's true or not that people are actually taking money out to pay taxes, it's the belief that people are taking money out to pay taxes, which has a negative impact on Mojo, right? So I think, you know what I mean? It's not even important if something's true. It's the perception that matters in this game, as I know you know. So.
It's perception, but it's also reality. I think a lot of people were, for the first time, figuring out some of the gains that they probably took last year, and are realizing they may have a higher tax burden than they figured this year. You kind of parallel that with just kind of where we're at in terms of the valuations right now. People liquidating to get cash to their taxes at this moment, or at least in the next week. I think that's a very logical thing to assume is going to happen to some degree. In terms of how it really affects the price action, it's hard to say. One thing I really want to say quickly on Litecoin, then we can move on. I don't know if this is even relevant or not, but again, moving in 5s and 10s, we seem to be moving in certain 5s, 10s, or whatever in Litecoin here. We bottomed at 112 before this nice move here. We just topped off right at 122, like on the dot on this hourly candle here. So it'll be interesting to see if that $10 move there, if people kind of had, I'm kind of see if I can ride this for, that kind of 10%, which we almost basically hit right there, and see how that, affects the price action from there.
Beautiful. Just in about 20 seconds, we have a question from the chat room. About 20 seconds, Big Jonas, what does it mean to buy and sell into strength and weakness? Can you just run that for us real quick?
Sure. I mean, as a trader, you want to be you want to feel like you're in control of what you perceive the market is and what's happening in the market at that moment. So if you're buying into weakness, you basically feel that whatever current downtrend that you're probably buying into is slowly coming to an end, or you feel there's an overbought. There's a feeling that there's a good risk versus reward moment, and at that moment, you're basically buying into into weakness. You're hopefully filling limit orders, which don't have any fees, and you're basically setting up as you scale in for that next bounce opportunity. When that bounce happens, you basically, as a good trader, want to start taking some profit. So you're basically selling as the price is moving up, as buyers come in. If you try and hit the nut bottom, if you try and hit the nut top, you're kind of, it's such a complicated game to play that way. That's why a smart trader will sell into that strength and know he or she is locking up profit.
Ride free though, right? Lock it up and ride free, Big Chonis?
You lock it up if you have your profit. If you're back to even and you're riding all profit, these are situations as a trader you want to be in. You want to trade from a position of strength. If you're trading from a position of, you're constantly having to dollar cost average, you're constantly having to figure out the impulse way you're affected by short-term moves, you're probably not in a solid position in your trade. You might want to reevaluate. That's why buying into strength is important, starting into weakness and selling into strength is important.
Yep.
The only reason you should buy in a market order format is in a very bullish market. And that basically is because moves are so fast and so quick and a lot of money behind them. And so big enough that it's okay to pay a little fee because you kind of offset that with such a great move.
Well, real quick, are you gonna do some videos on your YouTube page, like how to use GDAX and kind of go over that market and limit orders at some point in the future? Big Chonis?
Yeah, it's possible. I've been practicing trying to do a little more detailed charting, at least kind of discussing some of the charting I've been using, some of the indicators I like to use, talking about, I use GDAX mostly for trading the big three, and basically I was thinking about doing some potential live trade examples and showing kind of how I trade, how I scale in, how I scale out, how I set up my system, and some of the tricks kind of I feel I've learned over the past several months that I can hopefully teach people to become better traders and kind of see some of the things that I feel I've learned and see over this time.
You're the man. Litecoin is putting in some nice volume here. We have increasing bull volume. Just in terms of a standard deviation move, we are moving outside of the standard deviation with the price, piercing the upper Bollinger here. So it's hard. It's hard to think. Boom! Look at the hourly RSI on LTC, Big Chonis.
Hourly RSI is missing. What the heck?
We've really just started to get to that really hot level. So in theory, it ran up to, what was that? RSI did hit like 87 almost on that move from like, what was that? 105 to 130. So you got to think this could go, but I don't know. 126 is going to be the top, maybe.
Yeah, can you find an area in the 1 hour where the Bollinger was pierced that high in recent, history there? Only at the very top there, it seems, at 137 was the 1 hourly popped off that high. But after that was a pretty big move there. So yeah, it could definitely have some legs, but at least in the 1 hour, it's starting to show like it's getting a little overbought. The OBV is interesting there. That really perked up there and definitely brought some buyers.
I think I'm going to just, I don't know, I'm just going to throw this out here. I think we get rejected at 124 and pull back, and then I'll probably be wrong, but that's my guess. And Ethereum, I was also thinking we might get rejected at this 420 level and come back and try to make a higher low somewhere around like 385. So just to wrap that up, my thoughts on Ethereum and Litecoin. Litecoin, we're getting some nice bull volume here. And the on-balance volume is picking up. We do have a downtrend break in the on-balance volume on the 1 hour. That is notable. So that shows potential trend shift. The daily chart is on Litecoin. Yeah, we're not hot yet. We're not like Ethereum. Litecoin looks like it's got a little more room to run. So
Yeah, I mean, really, what everything is setting up is basically like until there's a reason to sell in this moment here, you're
Yeah,
not going to see it. Right now, we've
yeah.
basically
FUD.
tested 60, 500 a couple times here. It held. We're moving up. There's been some very light entries over the past few days that has brought us back over 7,000. We seem to be holding that pretty well right now. There's a chance we might dip slightly under it again just to test if it's true, and then it could bounce back pretty quick. But right now we're in a clearly short-term uptrend. And that could also translate very nicely to some of the alts, as a little more money flow might be flowing back into it now. And the alts can respond
Let's do
also
it.
because it just the valuation of Bitcoin increases as well.
Let's do it. Let's do 5 alts. All right, you pick them. You pick them from the chat room. Let's rock it.
All right. Anybody? First of all, it's nice to see everybody in the chat room this evening. Our 423 of our closest friends have joined us this evening on this Sunday night talking about crypto. It's going to be a very interesting week. I think a lot of things over last week have set up a situation next week where I think we're going to see some interesting volatility, and that's going to be something to look forward to. Let's start with ADA. What's up, Matthew Smith?
All right, ADA, once again, alphabetical. So ADA right now, wow, ADA's moving too, kind of like Litecoin, where we've got that 1 hour surge. The 1 hour kind of looks similar to Litecoin, doesn't it, Big Jonas?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. It does look similar to Litecoin. There's a little money flow here. It's pretty nice. Is this popping because Bitcoin's popping? I see a lot of the alts right now are probably up, at least a lot of the ones that have been moving recently are up, roughly 3%, maybe 4% or so in just the past 2 hours, because of this nice move that we're seeing in Bitcoin here. So that's something. A lot of that value is now being translated back to the alts because of this little push here. I think you're going to see that through the day. This could be a nice money flow day for a lot of the alts.
Could be.
ADA is one we've been talking about for a while.
Mm-hmm. Hey, hold on real quick. I saw some people mocking you for calling for like 560 Satoshis or something. I mean, just to clarify, you were talking about like a super nut worst case scenario. We were talking about like baseline support, right? We weren't.
Yeah, I think it was 6 something, and I still stick by that prediction. I think it's
really
starting to hit there. So yeah,
really,
I do. I think what you're seeing now is basically a wave 4 move.
Yeah.
I think we're kind of confirmed that we're held in this bottom here. This is just an idea. I could be completely wrong. I think history will show what's going to happen right here. I think Bitcoin still has one more big downward move to kind of happen, and if that does happen, I think the alts will sell off and kind of enter that final capitulation zone, which I don't feel we're actually at yet. I've been very encouraged with a lot of the money flowing into alts over the past couple of weeks. A lot of these basically bottomed out in 70-80% from their highs, and we're kind of retest viability issue there. And a lot of them have kind of shown that they still kind of have a nice movement there. And you're seeing a lot of healthy charts in some of the alts as well. ADA, although this is a huge pullback, is still a healthy chart because it's still hasn't completely collapsed, and it's showing kind of a curving in the price action there, what you would expect. The lower we go, we'll see what kind of a bounce we get here. I think it's kind of moved because of what's happening with Bitcoin here.
Yeah, I mean, clearly it's better than it was a couple weeks ago. We've got that big downtrend break. And we're starting to go sideways. We're trending back up. That's a good point. I think it's hard to know, Big Chonis, if we're gonna make that that one more leg down with a Bitcoin, then altcoins are not safe yet. But that being said, and I put out a tweet today. I won't bother finding it, but I put out a tweet today saying that if Bitcoin is going sideways, like a stable Bitcoin is good for altcoins, right? That's the market condition we want to see. So I think we're seeing some of that. And real quick, that's Big Chonis. He was just talking at Big Chonis on Twitter. I am Big Cheds. All right, what do we got next, Big Brother, on Bitcoin? I'm sorry, for altcoins.
Sure. Let's look at a TRX. What's up, Ricardo? We'll do a little
Oh,
TRX.
was it Justin himself requesting it from the chat room? TRX daily chart is kind of funky. It's hard to see what's going on. The thing that jumps out on the daily chart is we're trading above an area of heavy support from the 380 to that 450 range. That looks like some pretty good support. But let's zoom in a little bit on the 4-hour. It looks like we are, the bands are tightening. It's getting a little bit tighter range here. We're trading just at the bottom of this value zone. So we're kind of trading at the bottom of support. So I'm going to draw a trend line right here. I don't know if you'll see it on your screen yet. 497, 500. Basically, 500 is a level you want to see TRX hold. Big Chonis, if you look back to April 7th, do you see that hammer candle with that long lower shadow for Tron on the 4-hour?
Yes.
So right there, it kind of, see where it found support. Kind of at an important area. It found support if you go back to March 26th and you see that candle close on March 26th. That area is your support area. So it's, it's notable that that's where it found support. And right now it's really just trying to, it's trying to consolidate before it can decide if it wants to make another leg. What are you seeing on Tron?
It's still in an uptrend from its bottoming area back on 318. Absolutely. Money flow's been consistent. It's been definitely slowing down, but that could be just an example of kind of a reset, trying to see where this short-term bottom is. So that's kind of pretty good. A lot of the indicators are showing that there could be room to run here.
Such as?
I think the 4-hour clearly has room, but really the daily is showing that the RSI is still kind of in that zone where it can definitely move.
Either way.
The stock, either way, for sure, the stock isn't that bad there. And the OBV has basically held at least in this range for some time here.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting area there where if you see a break of the range bound it's been in, especially on the daily there, you definitely would have a sense of, wow, this is actually being accumulated for a higher price move. If the volume can come back on this next potential move here, you could see something happening. It's literally holding right where you really want it to hold if it's going to continue here. If it's not, it could find a little more support right at 500. You start breaking down under 500 there, and this could start to fizzle a little bit.
I'll just wrap it up real quick because I know there's other coins. A bull argument would be that on the daily chart, on the daily chart on April 5th, it really didn't give up that much. The following day didn't have that much sell volume. The bear argument is you didn't have any kind of follow-up buy volume, and on the 4-hour chart, you are seeing higher lows on the 4-hour chart, the higher low candle closes. So that's something to keep an eye on. Let's do 3 more, Big Chonis.
Sure. It's a one that actually I was watching earlier today, and we have a request for it from Crypto Slime. It's Particle, P-A-R-T.
Yep.
I noticed this one because it had some nice volume coming in. The first thing I will say is that it is currently only available, it seems, on the Bittrex marketplace, but had a very interesting day here. The 4-hour, we're showing a lot of volume, a lot of wicks, especially on this current one here. But again, we're only halfway into it. So we're definitely seeing a lot of good price momentum there. And potentially the beginning of an uptrend here. It's been pretty anemic for quite some time. And now this has been quite a move here. As we can see continue, because what we're seeing here is a lot of the EMA starting to fan out slightly. So this could be potentially the sign of a beginning move for Particle that has kind of been pretty flat for quite a while.
Okay, it's a lot to deconstruct. I think what's notable for me is that you do have a volume cluster here on the 4-hour chart. I mean, you have a lot of dead noise, right? There's silence, nothing's going on. But you have the downtrend break. Let's see, I'm on the 4-hour. You have the downtrend break, Big Chonis, kind of a couple days before you actually had that nice volume. So maybe you had a signal, maybe not, but you do have a nice volume cluster here. You have some consolidation. You did have that dark cloud cover candle follow up to that nice buy nice buying pressure candle on the 4-hour here on 4/8. So you have the dark cloud cover follow up. You do have these upper shadows which indicate sellers coming in. You know, bulls are jumping, are kind of pumping it up. A little bit of enthusiasm, a little bit of fear and missing out. Sellers come in, you know, they take profit, drives it down. It's trying to form, you know, form a little tight range here. And I'm not sure what it's going to do. I got to look closer on the, before I decide. I'm going to look at the 1 hour. I mean, we have lower highs, but we do have nice buy volume a couple hours ago. I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, this volume is too random for me, Big Jonas, to kind of like get a good feel for it. So
yes, but it's not overbought. If it keeps doing this, and if it keeps holding up these higher low, even with the wicks,
it's not overbought. Look at the daily chart.
Let's take a look at it.
Daily chart. I'm not jiving the daily chart, man.
It's not crazy yet. You know,
but it can't close. I mean, can it even close here? Look where we are. Like, can we even close here? Look at the upper Bollinger. Like, it would take a bull move to close here.
Well, that's the thing that's interesting here is you have that initial spike, okay, and you have the second spike. So I would assume that a break of the second spike on the down,
but lower high. Lower high,
yeah, and that'd be a bad situation.
Lower high,
there.
but higher low. So it's an inside.
Right.
It's an inside pattern.
Yeah.
But I don't think. I think we're gonna need several days. Like, I wouldn't buy in here. You're gonna need several days before you're gonna see any gains. This has to consolidate. So, you know, ideally you'd want to see this pull back a little bit. You know, maybe to 17 level, 17.2. What's next? What's next?
All right, got a few more here. Let's do ICX, icon, ICX.
Okay, we'll do one more after this. Just to leave the people wanting more. ICX, crossing buy signal in the daily chart, looks pretty good. I like the daily chart. At first glance, it looks to me like a bottoming chart with a higher low, stochastics cross, cool RSI. I really want to see the unbalanced volume pick up before I'm convinced. On the daily chart, volume's okay. I don't see any like bullish breaking buy volume yet. 4 hour. 4 hours okay too. I don't know. What do you think about ICX here, buddy?
Yeah, I agree with all that. You know, this is a newer coin. This was only put on Binance like 3 months ago, so it still doesn't have a lot of price history. But I agree. I mean, it's setting up to be potentially a really nice move here. You're right. The OBV is pretty low still, and that's basically what you're seeing is kind of that post ICO sell-off that happens a lot with these once they first come on the marketplace. That nice little buying spike we saw, you know, mid-March there. As long as we put in a higher low here in this move here, which it seems like we're trying to do, that's a very bullish move. You start seeing a nice green candle there, pushing to 3,500. I think, yeah, you start seeing 3,500 impulse there.
Yeah,
this could be the start of the next move.
35 would take a lot from here. I mean,
that would tell me that this one is about to continue to make this move here.
I don't know. I have a lower threshold. I'd like to see 32. I'd like to see it clear 32.17 because there's 3 data points. Well, there's a few, but back on April 3rd on the daily chart, that was our high, Big Chonis, and this is Big Cheds. And if you go to April 7th, Big Chonis, that was the high of the day, right? See that wick and see where it stopped. So isn't that the most important next level?
The only reason I bring up that that 35 areas there is because of that kind of really big candle that we had 2 weeks ago, which brought us from, you know, 3,000 to 3,800 in that 1 day period there. So for this to look really nice and bullish, once we enter that zone there and we kind of push through it, because a lot of that was just kind of like quick money, quick up, a push past that would show, and basically, I mean, I'm using 35. I could even go a little higher and want to see it actually go a little higher to kind of capsulate this beginning of a continued bullish trend here. But again, because there's not super history on this one, this could be just still part of a much larger downtrend until an actual market bottom is reached.
All right, what's the last one?
All right, we'll do XVG, and then we'll just recap Bitcoin and call it a show.
The Verge. We've got the they got some announcement coming up in a couple weeks in what is it 4/8. So it's going to be sell the news time in just over a week, 8 days. Let's see, daily chart. So daily chart, you know, it could put in a new leg here. Notably, it had a higher close on the daily chart, Big Jonas.
Mm-hmm.
That's a bullish sign for me. That's a bullish sign. I mean, we essentially had a bull flag that it just broke out of on the daily chart. So that's bullish. The 4-hour is almost kind of like an ascending triangle, which would be a bullish pennant. What do you think? Ascending triangle on the 4-hour?
Yeah, I mean, it clearly looks like it's setting up to put in that next leg. I think we have to acknowledge that it's up 100%, basically since its, March 20th low there. So basically 100% or so in the past 3 weeks. That's a great move. The volume has continued to fall off, basically slow and steady as we rise. The OBV, decent. The RSI was way overbought and basically did have a chance to reset. And you're right, on the daily, it basically could show that we could retest that upper area there and basically hold that again for another bullish move. So far on the chart, there's really nothing to say that this is kind of breakdown.
Right.
But the more overbought it gets, the better, the bigger the pullback basically it's setting up for. But the volume is still a little suspect here. You might see a super push again with a nice volume bar. That would really give the bulls a lot of support here. But until that volume picks up, we might basically potentially be hitting resistance here in this range until we can actually break 1,000.
Do you see the ascending triangle on the 4-hour?
I do, and we say that's bearish, right?
Yeah, bullish. That's a bullish.
See, it's bullish because it's hitting the top there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bullish continuation pattern. So we have to see what happens there, if it breaks or what happens. I'm actually leaning bullish here for a few reasons. The daily chart, the 4-hour chart. So I would say the daily and the 4-hour kind of line up a little bit, and then you have the news in about a week. Like that's. You know how ever heard people talk about like the carrot and the stick or whatever? You know how like they have like a horse on a racetrack and they put like a carrot out in front of them on a stick, and they kind of just keep trying to catch it and they keep running?
That's what's happening here. That's
what's happening here, right? You've got news in like a week and a half. That's the carrot, right? So that's going to drive the price. And then you're going to get I like to just throw a number out there for fun. Let's say maybe we can make another push to, I don't know, not that high. Let's say we can make another push to like 1,200. Maybe 1,300 for lucky, and then pull back and sell in the news. So let's check back in that. That's what I think might happen. Let's check on Bitcoin, and we're going to wrap it up. 7150, still pretty bullish, man.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's still pushing. This is a really nice impulse wave here. Kind of trying to figure out where we are, and if we kind of look at this as kind of an Elliott wave move, kind of feels like we're kind of finishing up wave 3, or we've been in wave 3 for at least a day here or so. Because of this move here, there will be a pullback at some point. And that will basically be a test of probably that initial breakout area here somewhere around 7,100 or so to see if we can hold that. The volume's picking up a little bit, which is nice, but as this move keeps going higher, you are still seeing people selling into the strength. Which is interesting here. As I mentioned before, I think as we get closer to a bottoming area, the volume will increase and the volatility will increase. We're not there yet. We're still kind of in the high 3s to low 4s area. So I think that we could see this trickle up for the next couple of days. It would not surprise me just the way everything is setting up. But as the 4-hour and as the daily start to show a little more oversold, and as we approach that resistance area,
overbought.
overbought. And as we approach, certain resistance areas that we've been kind of setting up over this past week, very interesting to see how the market's going to respond to that. A decent break of 7,400 could, potentially talk about a retest of 8,000 there. There's still, a bunch of hurdles to get to that point there. And then, similarly with Litecoin, are we going to test that 125 again? Are we going to test 130 again? It's possible. There's a couple trend lines I have here that, look like a test of 127 is definitely possible, based on what's going on with Bitcoin here.
127, not 125.
It's just a couple lines I have, but basically a break of 125, because 127 was where we actually topped off when we bottomed at 109, and then 110 was where we bottomed, is where we went to 137. So I'm almost seeing this as we're kind of fail basically on a double test of the previous high. So maybe a 127 to 130 could be in the cards. If Bitcoin was able to basically retest that 7,500 area. And then Ether basically would put that around 4.25 to 430 area before it's basically confronted with a potential topping off area.
That's interesting, because I think if Litecoin breaks 125, it goes to 130. I don't think 127 is important.
Well, again, it's how it gets there. We're slowly.
Good point. That's a good point.
So I think what you said is absolutely right. That's a more accurate point there. How it gets there will play. And, is this setting up for that kind of big move that will bring us down to test the $100 area, to basically double bottom test on Bitcoin of that 6,000 range? Are we setting ourselves up for that move? I think you kind of know when you see it, but in the meantime, in the next, I don't know, day or so, and really just a day or so. I mean, especially with the 4 hour the way it is here, we're kind of entering that, day 3 again, potentially, of a 4 hour on Bitcoin where we're topped off. We just went through this where we entered it on April 1st and we exited it on around April 3rd. We entered this one around, April 7th, and we're heading into April 9th tomorrow. So I think tomorrow we're going to get a definitive answer in terms of, is this going to be a really nice momentum push or not? Only time will tell for me. I'm just kind of watching and waiting and seeing if the market can show me a real direction here or there.
I love it. That's some fantastic analysis. I've illustrated some important resistance levels for you guys, or we have rather. So go back at the beginning of the show and review. Ethereum right around 417, Litecoin 125. Bitcoin, 7,500 is very important. 7,200 is also important. So once again, you can find me on Twitter. I'm at Big Cheds. He is the one and only Big Chonis. Whoop whoop. And you can find check out the Complete Beginner's Guide to Cryptocurrency Trading at chedstrading.blogspot.com. I wrote it for you guys. All right, make sure you use it. Make sure you love it. Share it. Anyway, we're glad you guys stopped by, and we'll promise to do another update soon, right, buddy?
Yeah, Cheds, thanks for hanging out, and we'll try and keep everybody up through the week in terms of what we're seeing, and we'll go from there.
All right, guys, take care and have a good night. Peace out,
everybody.